Tonton video ini sebelum menghina bangsa Indonesia. Orang Indonesia itu berbeza ya. Mereka adalah pejuang dan juga petarung. Hai, Assalamualaikum guys. Welcome back to my YouTube channel. Hai guys. Okay, seperti biasa guys, kita bertemu lagi dengan Nora. Dan seperti biasa, Nora akan sentiasa mendoakan untuk kalian semua yang menonton ini agar sentiasa diberikan kesihatan tubuh badan yang sihat dan sentiasa dipermudahkan segala urusan kehidupan seharian kita, InsyaAllah. Amin. Okay, terima kasih semua guys yang masuk menonton, yang udah klik ya video ini. Terima kasih banget Nora ucapkan. Dan terima kasih juga pada yang sentiasa support channel Nora ini. Thank you. Dan kali ini guys, Nora sebenarnya udah tertarik dengan satu video ini, yang mana video ini adalah mengatakan tonton video ini sebelum menghina bangsa Indonesia daripada Sheikh Imran Hussein, yang mana beliau sendiri mengatakan yang orang Indonesia itu berbeza ya. Mereka adalah pejuang dan juga petarung. Wow, jadi ini membuatkan Nora sangat-sangat udah jadi penasaran banget nih ya, mau tahu mengenai isi video ini guys. Okay, jadi guys, pastikan kalian semua menonton bersama-sama dengan Nora video ini sehingga habis. Dan yuk guys, kita terus semak saja video ini. Let's go.
Europe is empowered with a power which the rest of the world combined cannot match. If you think this happened by accident, you should go and buy a house in Disneyland. And Europe uses that power to attack the rest of the world and colonize it. If you think that happened by accident, go and live in Disneyland. When Europe colonized, it was something very sinister going on. It was made even more sinister because suddenly one day Europe started to withdraw. They call it decolonization. And as Europe decolonized, the natives now, they have something that they call, I don't know if you heard about it, independence.
Kemerdekaan.
Huh? Independence. And they have a flag, and they have a national
lagu
anthem.
Kebangsaan.
Huh? And they have a hodgepodge
Mereka
of an
punya
army
barisan
and so on.
tentera.
And then sometime in the middle of the night, they would have the lowering of the flag and the raising of the flag, and they'll be dancing and so on. And they say, we've got freedom. But the European will be hiding behind a mango tree and laughing his belly out. Look at these one-eyed fools. They think they have got freedom, that they drove Europe out. No. Europe withdrew for tactical and strategic reasons. But before Europe withdrew, decolonized, Europe planted some truly dangerous seeds. But the only way you could recognize those dangerous seeds is if you have nur from Allah.
Okay.
Not just knowledge that you get from the books. That's important. Yes, that is important. But you need something more than that. The first seed that Europe planted, that is in the essence of Islam, that you must recognize Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala as Al-Malik. The one who possesses Al-Mulk, sovereignty. That's the translation for Mulk, sovereignty. But now Europe leaves behind a dangerous seed called the modern secular state. And the modern secular state declares, we no longer recognize Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala as Al-Malik. The state is now Al-Malik, sovereign. And that is shirk. So this was the seed of shirk, political shirk, which was planted. How many Muslims saw it and recognized it? How many of our distinguished and learned ulama, for whom we have respect, we don't speak disrespectfully of them, not at all. How many of them recognized that this was shirk? We even had ulama in politics. Yeah, ulama in politics. We even had Islamic movements becoming a political party and fighting in elections like everybody else. Still going on now. But the second seed that Europe planted before withdrawing was the seed of transformation of money. Money was no longer going to be sunnah money, money which had intrinsic value, but rather we now have a new kind of money, this paper money, and it does not possess intrinsic value. The value of the money is outside of the money. And so now I'm paid my salary in paper. It could buy a camel, took it home, gave it to my wife, put it away. 5 years later, take it out, can't buy a camel anymore, can only buy a donkey now. Did you hear that? My 1 month of sweat is now reduced. Only 2 weeks have been kept in the money. And 2 weeks of my sweat has disappeared. Is this permissible in Islam? Allah speaks in the Quran. The Prophet Shu'aib alayhi salam, and the market or the economy of the people of Shu'aib alayhi salam is a corrupted market. There's a lot of ripping off going on in this market. And Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala responds to it in the Quran, and He declares 3 times in the Quran. Listen to the words. وَلَا تَبْخَسُ النَّاسَ أَشْيَاءَهُمْ. Do not do this. My 1 month is now reduced to 2 weeks. Do not diminish and make less the value of people's property, people's labor, etc. That is haram. And so this money, which is losing value, is by the definition of the Quran haram. But we were asleep. We were all asleep. And we didn't recognize. We were being taken for a ride. And then it would have become clear that my loss was somebody else's gain. Let me repeat that. When my money could no longer buy a camel, it could only buy a donkey. The value of my labor has been diminished by half. My loss was somebody else's gain. 5 years later, when I take it out, can't buy a donkey anymore. Can only buy a goat now. And so my 1 month has now been diminished to 1 week. If this keeps on going on, I'm going to be enslaved. A new slavery will come upon the world if this keeps on going on like this. Surely it was time for the Ummah of Muhammad alayhi salatu wasalam to stop fighting amongst themselves over popcorn. Because that's what they're doing. Fighting over popcorn. While this massive betrayal of Islam is taking place, and we are blissfully ignorant of it. That's the price we pay when we only have scholarship but no nur. 5 years later, when you take out that money, can't buy a goat anymore. You only buy chicken and chips. That's where Indonesia is now.
Ooh.
That is where Indonesia is now, chicken and chips. Yes. And still we're fighting over popcorn. If you're 17 years of age tonight, son and daughter, this lecture is for you. They've been fighting over popcorn while the slavery has come upon us. The Indonesian rupiah is now trading at about 10 to 11,000 rupiah to $1 US. When the Indonesian rupiah collapsed 3 years ago, dramatically, there was nothing wrong with the Indonesian economy. The International Monetary Fund or the World Bank just 2 or 3 months earlier had given a clean bill of health to the Indonesian economy. Nothing significant had changed in that economy. When George Soros and company attacked, and the banking centers around Indonesia attacked, Singapore is one of them. The Indonesian rupiah collapsed. overnight. And more than a half of the population of Indonesia were instantaneously reduced to poverty. There is such massive poverty in Indonesia today that the country is riddled with violence. And our sisters, or let's put it, my sister and my daughter and my mother must now sell her body for $1. It's very cheap now, $1. Yeah, it's happening. While those fellas are fighting over popcorn.
Okay.
It's not by accident that Indonesia was attacked. Because the Indonesian is different. He's a warrior, he's a fighter. He'll give his life for Islam. The Indonesian.
Okay guys, so itu dia video ya kita mendengar tadi. Okay, sedikit kata-kata daripada Ustaz Sheikh Imran Hussein yang mengatakan bangsa Indonesia itu sangat-sangat berbeza ya, orang Indonesia itu sendiri. Okay, dan mereka itu adalah pejuang dan juga petarung. Okay, jadi memang cukup luar biasa bagi Nora apa yang kita dengarkan. Dan jika kita lihat di dalam video itu tadi ya, beliau ada mengatakan di mana jika nilai wang rupiah itu jatuh sendiri, tetapi ianya tidak memberikan apa-apa kesan buat negara Indonesia kerana daripada bank sendiri mengatakan bahawa ekonomi buat Indonesia itu sendiri stabil. Okay, walaupun nilai mata wangnya itu jatuh. Okay, jadi di sini kita dapat melihat yang ianya tidak meninggalkan kesan negatif pada ekonomi negara Indonesia itu sendiri. Jika mungkin maksud yang disampaikan buat Syekh Imran Hussein itu yang mana mengatakan orang Indonesia itu berbeza kerana mereka adalah pejuang dan petarung, ya mungkin kerana mereka ini adalah orang-orang Indonesia yang cukup rajin bekerja, ya, rajin berusaha, gigih dalam melakukan sesuatu pekerjaan. Okey, bersungguh-sungguh. Jadi itu yang sedikit sebanyak Nora merasakan ya. Dan di situ mungkin ya rakyat Indonesia akan terus berusaha untuk menaikkan martabat kehidupan mereka itu sendiri dengan berusaha mencari pelbagai jenis jalan rezeki yang boleh diperolehi ya di Indonesia itu. Jadi itu mungkin sedikit sebanyak kefahaman yang kita dapat daripada Syekh Imran Hussein ya. Okey, jadi memang terbaik sekali ya info ini, cukup bermanfaat untuk kita jadikan jati diri kita itu kuat ya. Okey, agar kita lebih terus orang kata itu lebih terus gigih dan lebih terus bekerja kuat ya untuk diri, keluarga, negara dan sebagainya ya. Okey guys, gimana dengan menurut kalian semua? Seperti biasa guys, jangan lupa untuk tinggalkan komen di bawah ini. Okey, kerana Nora pengen baca guys, akan baca komen-komen daripada teman-teman semuanya. Okey, so Nora rasa itu sahaja untuk Nora untuk video kali ini. Terima kasih semua yang menonton dan berjumpa kita lagi di next video yang akan datang. So, Assalamualaikum.